All right, so let's say you're working on a project where you're doing some single case design research or documentation of clients' improvement rates, and you want to produce a chart like this. Unless you use Excel, it's kind of hard to do this kind of a chart. So what I'd like to do here is demonstrate how to produce this chart with the graphics that I have on the screen right here. And I'm going to use some data that I just made up. It's a random data set. I'm going to walk you through from the beginning to end. And we have three different participants. Participant number 1, baseline and treatment. Participant number 2, baseline and treatment. Participant number 3, baseline and treatment. And you can see that there are a series of scores. Each score represents a measurement at the same period of time for all three of these participants. So for the baseline phase, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 data points. Those are 8 consecutive measurement time points. So when we build out our chart, we're going to need to show that there are 8 different baseline measurement points for each of these 3 different participants. There's no staggered setup here. Everybody starts at the same time, and everybody changes from the baseline to the treatment at the same time. In the treatment phase, you can see that we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 measurement points. So across the entire study, what we have is a time series with 16 measurement points in time, 8 of which are in the baseline phase and 8 of which are in the treatment phase. And we have 3 different participants, so we need to document all of that. And if I go back over to Excel, you can see that, that I have a clear separation between baseline and treatment. And what we want to do is we want to start this from scratch, and I'll show you how to do this. And we need to simulate exactly what I have here. So I'm going to start a new data file. And the first thing to do, you're going to skip a line here and just drop in the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Those are going to be my values on the x-axis of the graph. And then I need to put in participant 1. I'll just put part 1, or let's call it P1 to make it simple. P1 P1 baseline. So P1 BL, and then the next one P1 treatment, and I'll use TX to stand for treatment. Then P2 BL, P2 TX, P3 BL, P3 TX. Now if you want to spell it out, that would be fine, and I'm just doing this to save some time. And you can see that in the other version of this that I set up before turning the recording on, I've spelled everything out. And the difference is going to be down here at the bottom of your graphic. You'll see the each participant's baseline spelled out here, or treatment spelled out. But the way that I'm setting it up to save time on this one, it's going to be P1BL and P1TX. Alright, so now we'll go back over to the data, and I'm going to copy and paste each section separately. We have 8 data points, so copy those in. You should end up with something like that. And like that. So copying and pasting takes you a couple of minutes. There may be a way to import it, but not the way I have it set up in this Word document. It's not going to import correctly. So that's why I'm doing the copying and pasting. depending on what format you have it set up in, you might be able to import it directly. But we're almost done. And there we go. Okay, now the other thing that we need is we need to have another column for the trend lines. Trend line for the baseline phase and the trend line for the treatment phase. And you can see that I've got those set up in the the chart that I've done previously before turning on the camera. So how do you get these numbers? You could use a calculator and take 8 plus 7 plus 7, divide by 3. But that's kind of tedious. So what we want to do is we want to create a function here in Excel. First, let me call it, how did I call it on the other one? Let me just take a look, trend 1 and trend 2. Let's call it BL trend and TX trend. You can call it anything you want, of course. Let me make that consistent, capital T. But at least this way we know which one is which, whether it's the baseline or the treatment phase. Okay, so we put our cursor here and we go to the Formulas tab, Insert Function, and we're going to use the average. Click OK, and you can see on the screen now in the pop-up we need to define it. So what we do is we click the points where we want to add it in. When we put one in, the next one opens up. And we're going to have 3, and that's it. So it's going to take the average of these 3 cells, which are 8, 7, and 7. And you can see that that is set up now. And one thing that we can do is we can copy and paste this functionality across these other cells. So now we have saved quite a bit of time, and we have those values set up, which are the mean scores of each of these 3 data points going across the 3 participants. And what that's going to be used for is to create this straight line that's the trend line going through the data. So we need to do that again for the next one. And I'm going to set up a new function because I need to use these 3 data points instead of the ones that I had for the baseline. So we go back to Insert Function. It's still on the average. Click OK. And now highlight the ones that you want. This one, this one, and this one. So there are some things in Excel. I'm a real newbie at Excel, not very good at it, but there are some things that are just sort of ridiculously easy, and this is one of those, thankfully. So we've got the mean score for these 3 data points, and then we can copy and paste. And by the way, speaking of being a newbie at Excel, there may be some things that I do in here. If you're more experienced at Excel, you might see a shortcut that I don't know about. So keep that in mind as you watch the video. I don't profess expertise in it. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to make the actual diagram, the actual chart or figure. We highlight all the data that we have and then go back over here. Let's see, we need to insert chart. Go to this one right here, which is the scatter XY chart. That's the one that we want. And we want this option with straight lines and markers. That's, if you use the other, see, you can see that it automatically sets it up, which is really quite nice. We can see that that is what we want. We don't want just the simple dots, and we don't want the curvy lines or the squiggles. You know, these other ones don't really look right. We want to plot out the client's improvement rate, and so this is the one to go with. Let's make that a little bit bigger so that we can actually see it. In fact, let me increase the magnification a little bit. Let's do, I don't know, let's do 130%. Yeah, so now we can see that pretty easily. Sorry about that. Trying to do this, I'm trying to drag the chart and it's not letting me. I'm doing something wrong. Okay, so we don't really need the data at this point. We're just going to be working with a chart, and what we want to do is we want to insert the trend lines for the different data points. You can see that the trend line, this trend line here, if we look at the legend on the bottom, the baseline trend is this really dark color. That's this one. And for the treatment phase, the treatment phase trend line is this sort of umber color. And what we want to do is we want to make these lines consistently colored for each participant so that participant 1 in baseline has the same color as participant 1 in treatment phase. And you can see that in the original version of the document, the original version of the chart, I've got it color coded so that participant 1 is red in both baseline and treatment phase, and so on. So each person gets a different color, and I'm going to walk you through that with this new version. Okay, so go to the little widget up here, the little X that when you hover over it, it says chart elements. Click that, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a trend line, but not for every set of data. We only want trend lines for the baseline and treatment trend. So we click on the baseline, click OK, and now we can see the trend line is going through there. And let me mention that what we're looking at here is the trend line based on these data points. Those are the average scores for the 3 different participants across each of their measurement phases, each of their measurement points within the baseline phase, rather. We don't want any of the other trend lines going through this data set. We don't want, for example, we don't want a trend line for that set of scores or this set of scores. It's the trend line that represents the average of all 3 participants. That's the one that we want. So when we clicked on the widget, I clicked the BL trend to add a trend line. All right, so another thing to point out is that this trend line is far too long. We want to cut it off right here in the middle. But let's first add the treatment phase trend line, and then I'll show you how to cut off those trend line start and end points. So with trend line clicked, well, you see if I click it again, then it goes away. So I'm going to have to add that back in. Let's go to BL trend, and now with it still active, hover over it. Don't click it, but hover over it till you see that little arrow. When I was first learning how to do this, when I first taught myself how to do this, I actually could not figure that out. It took me about 45 minutes of playing around with things to figure that part out. So this will help make it a lot easier. Click on that little arrow and then click more options, and you can see the pop-up box is showing up again. Now we're going to click the TX trend. It's going to add the trend line for the treatment phase. Now we can see that we've got these 2 trend lines. The next thing to do is to edit the trend lines so that they stop and start where we want them to. Just click anywhere on the graphic in here in the middle, and right click, select data. And with this pop-up open, what we're going to do is we're going to edit the data. Click edit. And what we're going to do now, this part is pretty tricky. It's kind of hard to see. You need to get your cursor right at that exact point. where you see the $sign and then the number 2. And there may be an easier way to do this, I don't know. I learned it through trial and error. And you can't move that cursor around. So if you don't get it in the right place, you have to do it again. You can't just use the arrow key because the arrow key is going to have a different function. But we're going to delete that number 2 and make it a number 9. Let me just see if that works. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, that was not right. So let's go back. Select data, edit. I'm going to change that number 9 back to a 2 so that I get it the way that it was before. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take this dashed line and make it stop where I want it to. So let me try that again. You see, you have to have the right one selected. Makes sense. So now with this one, oh, I know, it's this last number. I was doing the middle number instead of the last one. There we go. So highlight the BL trend, click edit, and originally this was the number 17 on the series X values. Change that to the number 9. And now you can see that the dashed line stops at the end of the baseline phase. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now we need to do the same thing for the treatment phase. We want to make it start over here at the number 9. And this one is a little bit more tricky. Select data. Go down to treatment trend. Highlight that. Click edit. And here's where you want to click the middle one. So I got mixed up on my previous go round with the baseline treatment, rather the baseline trend line. But here what we're doing is we're editing the treatment phase trend line, and you need to get it to that number 2 that's in the middle, change that to a number 9, and then do the same thing down here, change that to the number 9. Click OK. Now we have the trend line. It stops at the right point at the end of the series, but you can see that it's close, but it doesn't quite start at the value of 9. You would think that typing in the number 9 would make it start here, but it doesn't. It actually starts at the number 8. So let's do that again. And I did that intentionally because I wanted to show you that it's not always intuitive. So we're going to go back and we're going to edit this one more time. This is the treatment phase trend line. It's starting a little bit too soon. We want it to start at the exact same point as these data points, which is the data point of 9. It's the 9th measurement, but when we edit this, we've got to change it from 9 to 10. It's got to be the number 10. Now you can see that I've got the cursor in front of the number 9 instead of behind it, which I did before. So instead of using the backspace key, I'll use the delete key. And now I can type in the number 9, rather 10. And same thing here, 10. Okay. So now I've got it set up the way that I want. I've got the different trend lines starting and stopping at exactly the right points so that it matches the data. Good. That's actually the hardest part of all of this to my mind. And you can see down here that we've got the color coding for everything. But what I want to do is I want to make these a black line. And I'll show you what the goal is to finish. We want a solid black line for the trend lines. And so what we do is we highlight that trend line, make sure that you touch it at just the right point. And you can see now that we've got this panel open up on the right hand side. Let's change that to make sure that it's black. I'm not sure if it looks like it was a dark blue color before. Make sure that that's black. And then under dash type over here, make it a solid line. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now we do the same thing for the treatment phase trend line with the red dash line. We want it, or umber, or whatever color that is. We want to turn it black, and we want a solid line, not a dash. There we go. Now we don't actually want to see the data from the trend lines. This 7.333, 3.667, etc. We don't want to actually see those. We can't delete them because the trend line depends on having those data points in there. But they're not actually real data points. They're the averages of the other measurements for the 3 participants at the different measurement points in time. So we don't want to delete them from the data file, but we want to make them invisible. And the key here is clicking the right one of these lines. You can see that we've got 4 lines, but we only have 3 participants. Well, it looks like, let's see, 1, 2, yeah, there are 4 lines in here. It's kind of hard to see all of them. We've got a dark blue, a darker blue, a purple, and a green. And so which one is the baseline trend? It's the really dark one in the middle, this one right here. So what we next need to do is turn this invisible, and the way that I'm going to do that is with the line highlighted. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to tell it to have no outline, and then for the fill I want no fill. And now you can see that it's turned invisible. It's still there, and if you poke around with your mouse you might be able to click on it, but it's invisible, so you know it's kind of hard, but just trust me, it's still there. Those data points that we have right here are still in here. It's just that we can't see them, which is what we want. Now the one thing I've never been able to figure out how to do is on the bottom down here where it says BL trend, we've got this invisibility here. This, you know, it's turned invisible, but the legend entry is still there. And I've never been able to figure out how to get rid of that without deleting the data. I don't think it matters that much, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm sure there is a way to do that, but not in this video. All right, so we need to do the same thing for the treatment phase. The treatment phase trend line is this umber color, this really dark reddish brown. Click that, highlight it. We're going to tell it to go invisible. Don't make it white, because if it's white it will you'll be able to see it as it crosses the other lines. Make sure that it's set up as no fill and no outline. Okay, so now that's done. The next thing to do, and this would be the last thing, is that we want to have consistent colors. I like this blue color, and that is for participant 2. And participant 2 in treatment phase has this light blue, this baby blue color. I want to use that for participant 2 baseline as well. Participant 2 baseline is this green color. Make sure that you get the right ones lining up. We're just working on participant 2 right now, and I'm going to turn that into this nice blue color, this light aqua blue. Now we can see that participant 2 has the same color for both baseline and treatment phase. I kind of like this purple color, and that's for participant 1. Let's see, is it? Who is that? Participant 3. Over here you can see participant 3. So for participant 3's treatment phase, participant 3 has a green line, and I'm going to turn that into the purple line. I think that's the right color. Whatever color you like, that's the one to go with. But just make sure that you have the same color for baseline and treatment, because otherwise you won't know. It won't be as easy to discern in your graphic whether that person did better or worse. Let's see what other color I used in the original graphic. I used the red color, so let me go with that. I'm going to take participant 1 and change both colors for baseline and treatment for participant 1. And I'm going to go with the red, nice and easy to see. And then for participant 1 in the treatment phase, let's see, where is that? Participant 1 treatment is the orange one. I'm going to turn that red. There we go. Cool. So now we've got a nice graphic that shows the baseline and treatment phase separate from each other. I'm just playing around with the sizing. I'm not sure what I did at the very beginning, but I moved the interior chart in kind of an odd way. Yeah, so that looks good now. The legend on the bottom isn't really that pleasing to me, but you know, it's good enough. You can change the fonts on these. You can make them bold if you want. The whole point, though, is to see at each different measurement point in time whether the person got better or worse. You can also edit the chart title, which I do recommend editing that. Let's call it baseline and treatment scores. Of course, you can call it whatever fits the assignment or the project that you're working on. But yeah, and you can change the background color. So once you're happy with it, then you can copy and paste the entire thing. I think you can save. Let's see. You got to click on the right point. So there, I've copied it. I clicked on outside of the chart area. I clicked on the border, and now let me see if I can just plug that in over here, and what it would look like. I chose the picture version. That's way too big if you're working on a report. You want to size it so that it looks appropriately sized for the report that you're working on. And we'll call that figure 1. APA style calls for having this bolded, and then you would give it a title underneath, double spaced, and the title, you know, I'm just going to type in some stuff here. That would be non-bolded. Okay, so there you have it. That's a demonstration of how to create one of these graphics using Excel with a couple of the important points about color and the trend line demonstrated. There are a lot of other things that you could do with this, but that'll do it for now. Thanks for watching.